You brush past the man at the corner of 5th and Main, your shoulder grazing his jacket for less than a second, and by the time he turns around to see what touched him, you are already 30 feet away with his wallet sitting flat against your palm, warm from his body heat, invisible inside your sleeve. He pats his pocket twice, frowns, checks the other side, and gives up, assuming he left it somewhere, assuming it is his own fault. You do not look back, you never look back. Looking back is how people get caught. You have been doing this for 11 years. You started as a teenager in a crowded market, lifting loose change from open bags because your stepfather drank through whatever money came into the house and somebody had to eat. You got good fast. You got good because you had to. By the time you were 20, you had stopped thinking about it as stealing and started thinking about it as a craft, something with technique and rhythm and discipline, something you could be excellent at the way other people were excellent at piano or chess. You live a quiet life around it. You rent a small apartment above a laundromat. You read library books about sleight of hand and human attention, about the way a crowd moves and where its eyes go and where they never go. You practice for hours with a deck of cards and a row of jacket buttons, training your fingers to move faster than thought. You tell yourself you only take what people will not really miss: cash from men in expensive suits, watches from women who already own 3 more at home, things that sting for a day and are forgotten by the weekend. You tell yourself this for a long time, and for a long time it is mostly true. The trouble starts with a man named Delroy, who finds you at a coffee shop you frequent near the train station. He has watched you work, he says, sliding into the seat across from you uninvited, watched you for weeks without your noticing, which alone should have told you something about his own skill. He says he runs a small operation, 3 other people, a system, territories, lookouts, fences for anything more interesting than cash. He says you are wasting your talent working alone, picking pockets for grocery money when you could be making real money with real structure behind you. You tell him you work alone because alone means nobody to answer to and nobody to get caught by. He smiles and says that is exactly the kind of thinking that keeps talented people poor. You should walk away. You almost do. But your stepfather calls that same week needing money for a hospital bill from a fall he will not explain, and your own rent is 2 weeks late, and the careful, solitary life you have built suddenly feels very small and very fragile, and Delroy's offer sits in your mind the way an unlatched door sits in a hallway you keep walking past. You call him back. The first few weeks with Delroy's crew are almost exciting in the way that structure can feel exciting after years of working without it. You learn formations you never thought of on your own, a bump and a block working in tandem, a distraction at one shoulder while the real work happens at the other. You learn to read tourists from locals in half a second, to spot which businessmen are distracted by phone calls and which are paying attention, to recognize off-duty police by the way they hold their shoulders even out of uniform. Your earnings triple within a month. You pay off your stepfather's hospital bill in full. You catch up on rent and then some. You start, for the first time in your adult life, to feel something like security. Delroy notices how good you are faster than you expected. He starts giving you better targets: men with thicker wallets, women with jewelry that is not costume, businessmen carrying things that are not just cash, but cards and devices and sometimes keys to places that matter. You do not ask where the keys go after you hand them over. You learn the way you have learned everything in this life, that the less you ask, the longer you last. By the 6th month, you are Delroy's best earner, and he starts trusting you with information the others do not get: schedules, addresses, the names of people he is interested in beyond their wallets. You begin to understand that the operation is bigger than pickpocketing, that the wallets and the watches are sometimes just the entry point into something with more rooms behind it. Surveillance for buyers further up a chain you cannot see the top of. You tell yourself this is not your business. You tell yourself you only take what is in the pocket and nothing more. You almost believe it. Then comes the job that changes everything. Delroy calls you into the back room of the bar he uses as a base and tells you there is a man, a courier, who travels twice a month through the financial district carrying something in an inside jacket pocket that is not cash and is not jewelry. He does not tell you what it is. He tells you only that it is small, flat, and worth more than anything you have ever lifted in your life, and that whoever wants it has already paid Delroy a significant amount just for the attempt. You ask what happens if you get caught taking something like that, something clearly more serious than a wallet. Delroy says you will not get caught because you are the best he has ever seen, and then he says, almost as an afterthought, that if you are caught, the people above him will not be the ones explaining themselves to police. You understand exactly what that sentence means. You have understood violence by implication your whole life. You do not ask another question. If you have made it this far and you are finding this story worth your time, please take a moment to subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel keep going. Now back to the job, because everything is about to unravel. The courier moves through the financial district every other Tuesday at exactly 4:40 in the afternoon. The same route, the same coffee stop, the same predictable rhythm that makes him easy to study and easier to misjudge. You spend 2 weeks watching him from a distance, learning the rhythm of his shoulders, the weight of his stride, the precise moment each week when his attention drifts toward the espresso machine instead of his own body. You build your plan around that single moment of drift. On the day of the job, you take your position outside the coffee shop 15 minutes early. Delroy's lookout, a thin young man named Avery who has been with the crew less time than you, leans against a newspaper stand pretending to read, ready to create the bump that will give you your half second. The courier arrives on schedule. He orders. He waits. Avery moves in at the espresso machine, stumbling slightly, apologizing, and the courier's attention shifts exactly the way it always does, exactly the way you predicted, and you step forward and your hand finds the inside pocket and the flat shape inside it slides free into your palm with the same practiced ease you have used 1,000 times before. Except this time, the courier's hand closes around your wrist before you can withdraw it. He is fast. Faster than 2 weeks of observation suggested he could be, and you understand in that single frozen second that everything you studied about him was a performance, that the predictable rhythm was bait, that someone above Delroy already suspected an attempt was coming and arranged for the courier to be ready for it. You wrench free and you run, the object still in your hand. Your heart slamming against your ribs in a way it has not done since you were a teenager, lifting loose change and praying nobody noticed. You do not look back. You cut through an alley, then another, losing yourself in the crowd the way you have lost yourself in crowds 1,000 times before. By the time you stop running, 3 blocks away, breathing hard against the brick wall of a building you do not recognize, you believe, for one brief and foolish moment, that you got away clean. You did not get away clean. The courier saw your face. Not for long, not in detail, but enough. And what you do not know yet, standing against that wall trying to catch your breath, is that the man you robbed works for people whose business depends entirely on never being robbed successfully, people who do not call the police because the police cannot help them and would only complicate things if they tried. You deliver the object to Delroy that night in the back room of the bar. He pays you more than he has ever paid you for anything. You go home. You sleep for the first time in days, exhausted, relieved, certain the worst is Bano. 3 days later, Delroy does not answer his phone. The bar is closed when you walk past it, dark, the windows covered with paper from the inside. Avery does not answer either. You stand on the sidewalk outside the bar for a long time, the way you stood outside 100 coffee shops and train stations studying targets. Except now you are the one being studied, and you do not know it, and you do not know by whom. You go home. You pack a bag because some instinct older than reason tells you to, and you sit at your kitchen table trying to decide where a person disappears to when 11 years of careful skill were never enough to keep them invisible from the people who matter most. You never get to finish deciding. The knock on your door is quiet, almost polite, and you open it because some habits, like trusting a soft sound, take longer to unlearn than others. You are not arrested. There is no badge, no notepad, no tired detective writing down your version of events. There is only a man you have never seen before, calm and unhurried, the kind of calm that comes from having done this exact thing many times. And behind him, your stepfather's hospital bill, your rent, your 11 years of careful invisible work, all of it collapses into the simple, irreversible fact that you took something that was never yours to take, from someone who was never going to let it go quietly. Your neighbors hear nothing unusual that night. No struggle, no raised voices, nothing that would make anyone look up from their television or step into the hallway to check. In the morning, your apartment above the laundromat sits exactly as it always has, the deck of cards still resting on the small table where you practiced for hours, the row of buttons still sewn neatly into the strip of fabric you used to train your fingers. Nobody touches them for 3 weeks until the landlord, unable to reach you, lets himself in to find the apartment empty, the rent unpaid, and no forwarding address for a tenant who, as far as anyone in that building ever knew, had simply been quiet, careful, and impossible to notice. Exactly the way you always wanted to be.